So hello folks, I am in my actual office today, and I apologize for not giving one of these last week, and also for being as late as I am on um, the feedback for the literacy narratives. I've now gone through all of them. I'm going to release the grades as soon as I get this posted out for you. So the first thing that I wanted to say is, for those of you who haven't read the Anne Lamott thing, let me show you where that is. I'd like to read a little bit of it to you, and hopefully you will decide that you too would like to read this. So let me share the application screen. Here we go. So where I was talking about for this, I'm in here as a student right now, is go down to the alternate readings and resources. I'm about to use it again for something else here in a minute. Literacy narrative. And in here is this excerpt from Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. The whole thing's great. And, she talks about short assignments. I want to point the short assignments first paragraph out because many of you wanted to do some kind of a, metaphor, how, something is like something else, simile, I guess, too. But she does this, but then she doesn't say, trying to scale a glacier is like blah, blah, blah. And that's what many of you did. So just look at that. She's wonderful in lots of ways. But then as I go through here, the shitty first drafts, you should definitely read about that. In this class, you're not doing drafts that I'm seeing. In my classes, I build that in, but that doesn't prevent you from doing drafts and doing all of the things that she's talking about in here. You just have to start earlier and create a timeline for yourself, which is kind of what college students should do. And this is what I wanted to read to you about perfectionism at the end, because I think when I do these literacy narratives, I see a lot of this. And I think many people think there's something wrong with them, and they're not. It's not. It's very common. But she says here, perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor, the enemy of the people. It will keep you cramped and insane your whole life, and it is the main obstacle between you and a shitty first draft. I think perfectionism is based on the obsessive belief that if you run carefully enough, hitting each stepping stone just right, you won't have to die. The truth is that you're going to die anyway, and that a lot of people who aren't even looking at their feet are going to do a whole lot better than you and have a lot more fun while they're doing it. So I hope that this little taste of it makes it where you might perhaps decide that you want to, let's see, no, don't want to do that. That you might want to do this at some point, read the rest of it. If you're going to revise, I'd have you look at this and the other things that are in this this area in this folder, Bernice all of us, and then this I believe some of you were talking about things you believed, or I got it kind of through osmosis maybe or something, and some of this might be worth thinking about too. All right, so that's the first thing, and the second thing here is, go ahead and shut that off for right now. What else do I have here? Okay, so I noticed that many of you are putting the AI statement on your papers, and that's awesome. You don't need to put a works cited page on anything if you don't have works cited. Some of you did need one. Put the AI statement above it, but kind of spaced down. So, and you can even label it AI statement. So that's the first thing. But be aware that maybe I should change what's there because it's no content was generated. But if you used Grammarly or any of those kinds of things, those are AIs too. And you should say, I used Grammarly to suggest different words for me to use that maybe are higher college level or something like that. Or because if I know what tool you are using, I can understand a lot better and be able to help kind of speak to that. So AIs, Grammarly is one of them. There are several others out there. You can even ask, some of the sort of like ChatGPT or Bard or something like that to pretend that they're a professor and give you feedback on a draft that you put in for them. Tell it kind of what you're trying to do. And, don't believe everything it says in any context, but they can be good for that. What they're not great for is, of course, generating a draft that is meaningful and that has a human heart behind it. If I said something about bots on your particular essay, please don't take offense at it, especially if you worked hard on it yourself. I know that many of you have been trained to do what the bots seem to have been trained to do. But the difference is that the bots are even more vague. Like everything's technically correct, but they're more vague than even a lot of freshman students writing. So that's something to think about. Revision strategies. One of the things I noticed on several people is that there's some common problems that people have with run-ons and comma splices and things like that. And I wanted to show you really quickly an activity that you could do that could help with that. So let me go over here again, share my application screen, go to my content. Sorry, this is going to take a long time. All right, so within my place here, there's this revision resources area. I've got a lecture in here. I think if you click on it, you'll be able to see it. It might take a while for it to load. Not as long as I thought, though. Okay, so this is what I do in my face-to-face class. I've got some things in here that you can look at. These things are these two slides are from a book that I have used in my face-to-face class in the past, so you can look at those and maybe that helps you. But I have some strategies here. Explode a Moment is great for literacy narratives because a lot of times what you're missing is the narrative or the sort of detail and engaging storytelling kind of things that are helpful for that. Frankenstein's great for the research paper. So if you're going to do that, PowerPoint's kind of the same. Sentence length is the one I was kind of talking about for a couple of you. If you take your paper and you take 4 colors of highlighter and just mark the sentences, and you can play around with how long an extremely short sentence is, how long an extra, but whatever you do, keep it consistent and count every word in your sentences and use one of the colors that you've chosen for that, and then look at the pattern. The other thing that this helps you with is a lot of times if you're counting every word, it makes you see things in a different way, and you see some errors that you might kind of miss as you're reading, because we see what we expect to see when we're proofreading sometimes, especially if we've been working on it a long time. So do that, and then if you've got really long sentences, you should just expect or suspect rather that you have comma splices or run-ons or both. And just take a look at those and see what might be going on. For some of you with the comma splices, just look and see if you have 2 independent thoughts on either side of that comma, you got a comma splice. And there are a lot of things that you can do about that. I won't go into that right here because not all of you had that problem. So going back out of this now, I'll get out of this too. All right, so the next thing I need to talk about, we're coming up on the research paper. You did some stuff with plagiarism this week. My policy is in my syllabus, and I urge you to go and read it. Because my policy is really strict, it means I have a lot of conferences with people. However, my belief has always been that most people just don't know how to do it right. And so what you need to do is, kind of be told. And I want to make sure that you get it right before you leave me, because, you're going to it can eventually catch up with you. So if I have anything like you're missing a works cited page, that's an automatic conference. Everything that has citation within it and sources has to have a works cited page. Also, if you're not citing things within the text that are clearly from other sources that are not common knowledge, and common knowledge doesn't mean that you know it off the top of your head. It means common knowledge is that everybody that is your reader could reasonably be expected to know, that Abraham Lincoln was the president during the Civil War, things like that. So if stuff flags verbatim without citation, then I'll talk about that too. The plagiarism engine we've got, it's not great. Make sure you're citing it both within the text and on the works cited page, and just chucking a URL on a works cited page at the end of the document is not sufficient. You have to do the MLA citation. You have to do it right. So if I ask you for a conference, that's probably what that's about. Another thing you might get a conference request for is if it just reads a lot like a bot. I'm not going to fight with you about that. I just, if it's not really successful, I want to kind of talk with you. And one thing that I've noticed in my face-to-face classes is that some people are doing their own draft and then they're running it through Grammarly and taking all the suggestions, and it ends up sounding very much like a robot because that's what they're using. So you use your, kind of discretion about what you're going to use and not use. Don't assume that every error that something flags is actually an error. Learn that yourself, because sometimes it's just that these words are commonly confused. Which one do you really mean? Also, writing off the top of your head just an essay with no cited sources, don't do that. That's not a research paper. It's not responsive to the assignment, and the grade will reflect that. And if you want to do a revision, you have very little time from the time I see this till the end of the course. So lots of downers. Now the next module. The main assignment in there is kind of that topic statement and then a couple of sources from Google and from the databases. It's in 3 parts. It's worth 60 points, so that's a lot. So make sure that you check my rubric and see what you're being asked to do in those places. And then you do need to both do an MLA citation. You can use EasyBib for the one that's from Google if you don't want to do it by hand, although learning to do it by hand is not as bad as it used to be, trust me. Databases have their own tools for that. Make sure that you're using the MLA sort of output rather than, Brazilian national standards or whatever the first one is in EBSCOhost. EBSCOhost and Gale Cengage are the two that I usually send people to because it's easier to get the citations out of them than something like Credo or something. And sometimes, you also want to use college level sources. So if everything that you're using and citing is an encyclopedia, that's great for middle school, but even if it's cited right, it's going to not be a successful college paper because you're not using anything. It's very high level, and what can you say that the encyclopedia hasn't said? I really do not want to read a Wikipedia article that you wrote or anything like that. So let's see. One thing that I did do here that a lot of my colleagues don't do, and as I was looking at it, I enabled Safe Assign on this. And the reason I did it is that you have to summarize the source, and you need to do it in your own words. And just copying and pasting an abstract is probably not going to end well for you. That will get caught because, or it probably will get caught. But you need to know what your sources say so that you can use them intelligently when you're actually writing your draft. So keep all of that in mind. The last thing I want to talk to you about is my email. And your teacher actually, Miss Lewis, actually sent me something. It's like, oh, that makes so much sense now. So I'm going to share my screen again here. I'll go in here. I'm still in here as a student. I'll X out of this, go back up to the top. So in my view of this little envelope is not there. This little envelope, though, does not actually go to my email, my main inbox. It's basically the messages function there, and then it forwards it, so there's a message that will show up in here, but then it forwards to my email. The reason that I don't want to deal with that is because I can't find it in the email very well, and I really need to have stuff outside of Blackboard just as a record so that I can, if my dean asks me for, maybe an email exchange that we've had, it's a lot easier to pull it from my email and send all that on rather than have to pull it out of messages first or go find it in my spam folder or wherever it ended up. So I think that's all I've got for you today. So what you need to do instead is just go to whatever email you have and come to this thing right here at the top of the course and click on it. And my email address is right there. Just copy and paste it into your whatever email you're using. Don't just type Sharon down kind of or in the Boone County thing, because I have an email address in the system that I have no idea what the password is for, and I don't log into Boone County anymore. So this is the one you need to use. I will not make you use the KCTCS email if you use your Boone County or whatever, because I know some of you are juggling 2 or 3 emails. As long as I can be sure it's you and not some other random person who wants to talk about your grade, I will answer those. So I hope this is helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll look forward to seeing your work in the next modules or so.